We live in a democracy and we should be able to discuss everything openly. This is one of our guiding principles and another reason why we, as the Swiss health television company QS24, want to share other perspectives with you that may not always match the normal medicine. Due to a new regulation by YouTube, it may now be the case that some of the very polarizing videos are deleted from time to time. On our website QS24.tv, under the heading Censorship Videos, we'll continue to make them available to you, because QS24 stands for democracy and freedom of opinion. Welcome back, dear viewers, to our series Natural Medicine. I was recently able to do an episode with Hans Rausch. Hans Rausch is not just anyone, but a very significant person. I'd like to read his reputation very briefly to you, so that you can really see who you're dealing with again today. So, he's a biologist, he's a chemist, he's a visiting professor at the TCM University in China, long-term university lecturer in Germany at the University of Isny. He creates the Foundation for Phytotherapy, which is used as a tool. His gold standards are accepted and used for over 3,000 substances worldwide. All authorities worldwide know him, and the industry as well as the pharmaceutical companies are his customers. In China and Japan, he's one of the leading scientists. He's Deputy Federal Chairman at the German Standardization Institute, DIN, officially recognized expert in pharmaceutical law and counter-expert for legal disputes. So that's briefly about his reputation, ladies and gentlemen. He's back today too, Hans Rausch. A warm welcome, dear Hans. Thank you for having me. Yes, gladly. And I'm happy that we might be able to discuss interesting aspects again. Yes, dear Hans, the last episode we did together. In fact, that was a very significant episode. What did Wuhan do right? This show also lasted 57 minutes. We couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. It was so important. You told me very clearly that Corona is neither a joke nor a game. And even if there are a lot of conspiracy theorists out there today, it's important to take a serious look here. It's real. And all measures that the authorities have taken in terms of isolation measures were for good reason. Thank you very much for that. Many thanks again as well, dear Hans, that you actually brought this Wuhan solution to Europe. However, the Western world still doesn't want to look. What really works in Asia is not yet being implemented here. And I'd really like to re-enter the discussion about this solution called Shufeng Jiedu, which is the drug that's used in Asia. You explained to me that it contains 8 active ingredients, plant-based, and every single plant has a spectrum from 1 to 2 million different enzymes, right? No, not enzymes. We have to differentiate it a little bit. So, Shufeng Jiedu is a patent remedy. That means it's available as a finished product under this name in China, and only in China, and is distributed there and patented. And it has been in the Chinese pharmacopoeias for years. So the original recipe is also shown there, so that other doctors can also tinker something similar from the same raw materials. And I'm not allowed to order it in China. It won't be delivered. No. And now it has to be said very clearly that Shufeng Jiedu is not allowed to be exported from China at the moment. And it wouldn't be allowed to be used in Europe because it's not approved in Europe. So, from a purely legal point of view, we have the situation where there's a finished product with complete approval, secured with clinical studies and all legal requirements in China, but only limited to this region. Not possible with us. Now, we have to clarify something. It's based on 8 plants. in the finished product. However, these 8 plants turn into 3 active ingredients in one intermediate step. So not 8 active ingredients, but 3 active ingredients. And these 3 active ingredients are then combined into the finished product in the manufacturing process. That is the patented process. We went with an alternative strategy to be able to realise a similar supply at all, and have just developed a different manufacturing process, specifically developed, which didn't exist before, with which we then process the 8 individual plants into 8 active ingredients, which can then legally get to pharmacies as active ingredients after approval and legal examination in Europe, to get an analogue product from there. So a similar but not the same product that is generated by the pharmacist by hand. This is for the transitional phase until a legal approval can even be implemented in Europe, or a possibility can be created to enable the patient to use this therapy option at all. Even if the Western governments were to say now, for a certain period of time, simply to cushion this pandemic, we allow this product into Europe, it wouldn't be possible to get this product in Europe, because the Chinese market is still basically taking up all the production. This means that we have the option of whether one option occurs or the other option occurs. We didn't have either, and we just tried to create a socially acceptable solution that was also acceptable for China, without weakening their own resources. That means the same manufacturer uses the same raw materials and comparable machine technology, but different, and that thus doesn't affect domestic production in any way, but only has additional production specifically for the subsidiary, their own subsidiary, which we established together in Hamburg in order to be able to offer the possibility, exclusively for Europe, of participating in this therapy option. May I talk about something else? I also spoke to Dr. Klinghardt, and a few years back he had worked on SARS for the American military to help prevent this pandemic there. They then worked with chloroquine and zinc. I hear this word again and again today, even from the mouth of Donald Trump, who apparently takes that too. All of this is ridiculed in Europe. They were successful over there. However, that's not a drug in that sense. Let's put it this way. You have to be very clear about it, and that's where we are always faced with a dilemma. Developing a drug for a disease takes years or even decades. And it's always based on the fact that the disease doesn't mutate, so the virus doesn't mutate, right? Not necessarily, but there are aggravating factors that create even more problems. But there's also the question, which mechanism of action is the therapeutic agent attacking it all? So now we have to seriously distinguish between 2 things in this question. For example, when we say we want to use the immune system to prevent or massively reduce an infection in the human body, that means we then have to go to the identification structures of this virus, so its outer shell. We also have pictures of it, so you could show these pictures here. Yes, I'll quickly show this picture. So these are the 2 types of virus, right? Or what is it? No, that's corona. One is the cross-section, the other is the whole virus. we see that the outer shell has a certain characteristic structure. So, there are viruses that change relatively little in their outer shell. The typical example that's defined again and again by the vaccination friends: measles. Measles. This virus doesn't change. I can still treat it with a vaccine from 70 years ago. Or we have viruses that are constantly changing. We also have a bad example with HIV. And corona is tending in the direction that it can change because there are already mutations that are known and described. Even in the brevity of the scientific processing, we can already see mutations. And then the question is, what technology do we use to approach this? Classic vaccine candidates, or vaccines, are produced in China, so with inactivated viruses, or virus fragments, so that antibodies are then produced in the body, which can then be active against the intact virus. If it changes, we don't know how it will fit. We know the problem with the flu vaccination. Sometimes it works better, sometimes it works less. The problem, of course, is when you make a vaccine, you're always months behind. That means I have to choose one virus candidate at a time. Then make a vaccine against it, and hope that the virus hasn't changed in the meantime. But how promising is the whole works now about this vaccine, which should be coming soon? Yeah, well, the Europeans and Americans have another approach that has not really been used yet at any point in time, which is an RNA vaccine. For the layman now, RNA is genetic information, so I'm attacking the genetic information somewhere. So far, there are no empirical values in long-term studies of how such a vaccine has an effect on the human organism at all, whether or not we may not actually be able to treat a corona infection with it. But the long-term damage is by far greater. I only remember Contakt. Nobody expected such damage then, or such long-term damage. We have crippled people to this day who are still alive as a warning what can happen if you start to work with, let's say, a technology that has not been adequately tested, or active ingredients that have not been adequately tested in the human organism. Normal vaccine development takes 4 to 5 years. We don't have that time. And if we are faster, then what we get is a massively increased risk. Yes, I hope that it won't be made a mandatory vaccine. I'm not assuming that a mandatory vaccine is even possible for all population groups. If at all, it could be then only for, let's say, a mandatory for certain risk groups. I'm not a friend of it because the risks can't be assessed in any way at the moment. Can we go back to the chloroquine and zinc? Anytime. Chloroquine was developed against completely different diseases. And the hope now is, of course, to find a candidate you already know through series of tests. So, something that is known, that you then rededicate and say, okay, it also works for this disease in a certain way, has manageable side effects, because basically medical therapy always works with a weighing of interests. How much does it help and how little does it harm? And that is the hope. It has been used successfully many times on animals. Chloroquine also is a typical veterinary product. It's been used to a certain extent in humans, and the side effects are known to some extent. It's not selective for corona, but it's a try to have something at all. But, and now comes the big but, that comes from the phyto way of thinking. We have one active ingredient, so a mono preparation, even if I add a heavy metal such as zinc, which can have a certain effect as an enzyme or coenzyme. With the right dosage, it doesn't hurt. That's another story. But it is a monoactive ingredient that can only intervene at very few points in the infection process. I am the advocate of the group who say the more effective, relevant components we have in a mixture, the safer and the more efficient we can work, and how much fewer side effects are there to generate. So, multi-component mixtures have the image of the herbal doctor, but in many cases have a very high success rate. On the other hand, mono-supplements have the great advantage that they work immediately, but often due to their dosage needs, also bring correspondingly more side effects. So, you won't hear from me now a complete rejection of chloroquine. I would say this is a theoretical approach. We are discussing another candidate. I'll just take it as an example, remdesivir. Personally, I think remdesivir is simply due to its mechanism of action, because I deal more with the biochemistry, maybe a little better than chloroquine, just from the point of view of chemistry. But even there we get the whole thing with side effects. Before I go back to the drug from China, I would like to ask again briefly. You said in the last episode that in China there is a very small percentage in the statistical comparison of influenza deaths in China compared to Europe. And that has to do with the fact that they work a lot more with this drug. Not only with this one, but also with other antivirals. We also said that not all of them have been investigated that well, but some of them are very effective. We now also have another example. I want to stick with this, sorry. To what extent is flu vaccination an issue in China? Do they do it? Is it also done, or do they always work a lot more with this product that you just wanted to mention? No, there is both. Of course, we also have to differentiate between the population groups. There are certain sections of the population who say that they prefer a vaccination because it's a single shot and they can then forget about it. Of course, that's always a question of convenience. What do I want to do to myself? Do I want to take the risk and then treat myself afterwards? But always, of course, with the risk that I will miss out on some time at work. Or do I try to prevent the infection from happening by vaccinating? The effect is, however, comparable to the West. Sometimes it works a little, sometimes better, sometimes it doesn't work at all. Okay, then back to this drug, which is used very successfully in Wuhan and which China actually keeps to itself. Says this is exclusively for us. We treat ourselves first. There are 1.3 billion people, so I fully understand. But now, in cooperation with the patent firm in China, you have found a way to actually legally bring this to Europe and give people an alternative way that has been proven to work. Yes, because the active ingredient that we can use in Europe is not subject to this patent, but has the same high quality, which is also found in the product in China. That means it's from the same raw materials that this company buys. The domestic production of Shufeng Jiedu is done. And at the same time, the same raw material is used to generate a special edition of active ingredients, specifically for the export to Germany. with different machines. Like I said, identical in construction, but different, so that we simply don't have to influence the production, which is necessary for the internal market, and that was the reason why we then have a corresponding export license for exactly these 8 active ingredients. Not 3 active ingredients as in the domestic product, but for 8 active ingredients according to our recipe. According to the classic compactate philosophy. How other products also can be generated in Europe, so that we can use them and are able to reproduce this product to a certain extent with a new composition. Maybe at this point, which pharmacy is it where you can get this preventative medicine? Or that for the acute case, which I think is called CC08. Exactly. At the moment, as far as I know, the train station pharmacy in Kempten, in the Allgäu region, is the sales pharmacy that is allowed, after mixing and after testing, to compile these products and give them to the patients. I'd like to draw another loop for the last 2 or 3 minutes. You told me in a conversation that you have involved the Federal Ministry of the Interior in this regard. No, Bavarian Ministry of the Interior, not federal. Yes, exactly, the Bavarian. Said they will get back to you if necessary. Apparently the need is not there yet for an existing proven drug solution. Then you saw the spokesman for internal research at the Liberal Democrat Party. No, so the company that deals with marketing measures have been in touch with him because he was actually of the opinion that vaccination alone is not the way to go. And the feedback from him, we actually have all the mail traffic here in our studio. I don't want to read all of it aloud to you. Bottom line, simply, no need. He knows where his limits are, and he doesn't want to go out on a limb. That was actually the conclusion of the mail. Let's just leave it at that. For me, it's just important to close this episode by saying there is a drug that is unfortunately only available in China, but you managed to bring the individual components of this drug to Europe. And the pharmacy you mentioned is ready to mix this as a prescription and deliver it to us. And there is this CC08, which was used against corona in Wuhan for acute cases with problems of the upper respiratory tract. Yeah, viral upper respiratory infections. Classic application of this drug in China. And since the ingredients are comparable, it should have the same effect with us. So very important for me to have a bottle of this at home. You can use it in an acute case. And on the other hand, that's almost more important to me. A mix of 9 has also been put together, which is also available, which preventatively strengthens our entire immune system. I didn't put it together, so I didn't do it myself. I'm not the therapist, so the top therapists of traditional Chinese medicine have, specifically for corona, developed and tested certain recipe mixtures. And we have, or I have, been responsible for ensuring that the necessary active ingredients are legally available for production in Europe, and can then also be put together in the pharmacy, according to the prescription of the doctors. As prescribed by the doctors, the pharmacist. Does that right? Yes, of course. The doctors have basically determined the proportions that are necessary to achieve the optimal effect. That's not part of my job. I have to ensure that the necessary active ingredients are available in the appropriate quality and can be used legally. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. You also get a different dose than someone who's sick. Exactly. These are not the things I do myself. But I make sure that the pharmacist is able to generate a product afterwards through his manual work, with which it is then ensured that the patients also get what they want and should have. Yeah, dear Hans, thank you very much. I added to the title, Where is the West heading? Unfortunately, not to Asia. Everything that comes from there is frowned upon again and again. It's all belittled, but they have treated many millions of people in Wuhan themselves successfully. You don't hear about that. And also that there are practically no infected people left. You hardly hear anything. We don't look beyond our own nose and don't want to learn what was successfully done there and just copy it. That's too bad. As a final word, a good scientist doesn't orientate himself according to political systems, but looks, who does it better than me? Maybe I can learn from them too. It really should be like that. It's the job of the scientist to create knowledge. I really want to say thank you very much for taking this path successfully for so long. And today you have such a large capacity that everyone really takes you seriously. Unfortunately, your influence is not strong or big enough that you really get to the political level to distribute such tools, aids, because QS24 is not seen yet by everyone. It is certainly a good number of people, and I hope that this video will be shared as much as possible again to show that there is a remedy, which is a purely naturopathic remedy. Mother Nature has given us everything in a multitude and abundance, in a spectrum that has also proven an effect against the coronavirus. Nature has a lot. We still know very little, but we should learn new things every day and stay open-minded. I think that's the creed that I stand for. But the Western way is not looking for a wide variety of products at the moment, but only for that one shot that could fit exactly like a key in a hole. Instead of putting up a whole door, well, different world. A different world. Thank you very much. And you too, dear viewers. See you next time.